The Household Guide to Dying by Debra Adelaide. Read by Eleanor David. The first thing I did this morning was visit the chickens. Archie had already given them the kitchen scraps, so I leaned over the fence and scattered handfuls of pellets. As always, they fussed and squabbled as if they'd never been fed before and never would be again. Then I opened the gate and went to the laying boxes. There were 3 eggs, one still warm. I held it to my cheek, savouring its wholesomeness. It was an experience I treasured. The comforting shape, the startling freshness, the idea that this egg in my hand was a potential new life, requiring of the world nothing but warmth. Inside the house the phone was ringing, but I didn't bother rushing to answer it. It stopped after 5 rings. It had been doing that a bit lately. The air was rinsed clean from the rain earlier. I could hear the clipping of hand shears. Mr. Lambert next door maintaining his lawn. Mr. Lambert for whom dew, rain, or even a snowfall, if such a thing were possible here in the temperate suburbs, never inhibited his devotion to the task, as if all his focus could only be directed down. I wondered if he thought about returning to the earth now that retirement had gripped him. Or was that just me, thinking about my own future? Did I say future? I really wish there was a right word for all this, because irony is completely inadequate. For a start, spring was mocking me with its glorious signals that summer was on the way. The wisteria outside my window making the most splendid mess of the veranda, the driveway littered with papery blossoms, my car confettied with them, as radiant as a bride. And now the sun was out and the wind was warm, I could smell the wisteria. Or perhaps it was the jasmine along the front fence. My sense of smell was becoming muffled. Spring is the time of hope, of anticipation, of plans. This morning I hadn't yet faced breakfast, which would be half a slice of toast, no butter. There was no question of eating one of those eggs. It didn't get more cruel than this. The season of expectation, of growth, the season of the future, when there was none at all. It was spring when I'd had the first operation. Spring again when I discovered the operation hadn't arrested the cancer. Further removal of body parts and intensive chemical treatment represented a Scylla and Charybdis between which I was pounded for another 6 months or so. Archie begged me to keep trying. My mother persuaded me. The fact of my 2 young daughters reproached me. And so I pushed on. And up until the last operation, when my body was sliced, sawn and prized open, the head this time, I still retained a scrap of hope.
Dear Delia, can you settle an argument I am having with my friend? She says you should only do your grocery shopping with a list, that I waste time and spend more money without one. And it's true, I sometimes forget that I needed light bulbs or rice flour. But then so does she. Unsure. P.S. We are both 65 years old.
Dear Unsure, I'm sure that the incomparable Mrs. Isabella Beeton would have maintained that efficient housewife never undertake her grocery shopping without a list. However, life is short. There's a lot to be said for spontaneity. You might occasionally forget the light bulbs, but I bet you buy those dark chocolate cream biscuits when they're on special. I bet your list-carrying friend does too. P.S. Mrs. Beeton was only 28 when she died. Your friend might want to think about that next time she's writing her list. Home economics was promoted to a science sometime in the 1970s. I never took the subject myself, being domestically taught by my mother and grandmother. Both believed in the deep end school, and so my grandmother, who cared for me when I was a preschooler, simply pointed me in the right direction, and I started to scrub, soak, mop and sweep along with her. When I was a bit older, my mother, Jean, whose speciality was the kitchen, took over. I had to whip, fold and poach with barely a lesson. Their theory was simply that, as a female, I would learn all this by osmosis. A ludicrous idea, one might think, but by the time I reached high school, learning domestic science seemed as elementary as learning how to catch a bus. Didn't everyone just do these things? 30 years later it was different. We women of the early 21st century knew we were poised somewhere between domestic freedom or servitude. The home was ripe for reinvention. Even the theorists were claiming it.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?